Cheers and welcome to Beerstories from Beerstory Brewhouse. I've brewed up a full flavored hazy double IPA. It's tropical, it's juicy, it's creamy, it's everything you want out of a double IPA. So check out this grain to glass video. This is the juiciest, most hoppy beer I've ever made. It's in my top 10 of juiciest big DIPAs I've ever had. So I'm really satisfied with this recipe. I think the recipe is fine as it is, and I will explain it to you why when I go through it. But there are some changes you could make if you want to make it even more juicy than it is. But I'll explain that while I explain the recipe. It's a full flavored DIPA, and I haven't used any flaked oats. I'll get back to that as well. But it's still juicy, it's thick, it's creamy, it's really hoppy. The bitterness and sweetness is really balanced, so it's easy to drink. And it's just full flavor all over the palate. It's the recipe here is for 25 liters. The boil time is 30 minutes. My mash efficiency is about 75. ABV, it's a pretty strong beer. It's 8.3%. But you get a tiny hint of alcohol, but it's really tiny. Yeah, it's zesty. It's not alcohol, it's not warm, it's not burning or anything. I think it's more zesty. It has a zesty sharpness to it instead of alcohol. But I guess it's from the alcohol playing up against the sweetness and stuff like that. So it's a pretty strong beer. Original gravity was 1083, final gravity 1020, and that's important. So I used every trick in the book, pretty literally actually. All the things I could implement in this recipe from Scott Janis's The New IPA, I took in. So basically the principles in this beer should be the perfect way to brew a double IPA, hazy IPA. So so I really recommend you to try it this way before making any changes. But the final gravity was 1020, and you need to go that high to ensure you have enough sweetness to play up against the hops, and also to raise the IBUs and have those play well together. It's not a sweet beer at all, because it's 53 IBU, and that plays well against with the sweetness, and all the juicy hops, they just make all this come together and this tropical kind of spicy herbal way it's just great. So the final gravity also contributes to the juiciness and the thickness of the beer. So it has to be that high. The color is only about 9 EBC. I like them pale yellow. If you want it to be more orange, you should add some Munich. Do not add crystal malts. They will oxidize your beer. In this beer, it will be dangerous. So don't do that. Use some Munich malts instead, 5 to 10%. That will make it more orange. The style guide says about 11 to 12 EBC for a beer like this, but I like them pale. I like them really bright and yellow, because the flavor of this beer is bright and yellow in terms of the tropical fruits that I get from it. The fermentables, I left out oats in this because oats contain a lot of manganese, and manganese is one of the minerals in beer that oxidize, that that will accelerate the oxidation of the beer the fastest. So yeah, flaked oats is not really good for shelf stability. So I left that out. I used chit malt instead. Chit malt is an undermodified malt that contains a lot of proteins, so it gives a good haze, it gives a good head, good thick foam, and yeah, it also contributes a little bit to the juiciness of the beer. And then of course I added wheat malt, and also for haze and foam, and then dextrin malts for giving it more body. So it's extra pale premium Pilsner malt from Weirmann, 65%, chit malt 12%, dextrin malt 12%, wheat malt 12%. And that makes the grain bill, it makes the base for really, really juicy, creamy beer, hazy beer, without using oats. And you really, really can't taste that the oats aren't there. Normally I taste oats really well in DIPAs, and if I get that doughy, oaty feel, I really don't like it. So yeah, I just love it that it isn't in this beer, and it's still that juicy. The hops also contains or contributes to a lot of the juiciness. This is just saturated with hops, so yeah, but I'll get back to that right now, actually. Oh yeah, this is important too. So I masked for, just masked for an hour at 67 degrees Celsius. I'd rather here, but that is in Fahrenheit, for an hour. And I added ascorbic acid to the mash as well, because that also makes some reactions in the malt that will actually prevent oxidation down the line, and again get you a longer shelf life. So I used every trick in the book to keep this as fresh as possible for as long as possible, because this is not a cheap beer to brew. It's the most expensive beer I ever brewed. And I just wanted that to stay fresh. So that was my first concern when deciding to not add oats, actually. You can get it thicker, so much more creamy if you added 5 to 10% oats. Do not exceed 10%. If you wanted to, add 5%, not more than that. It's really juicy. Yeah, so for the hop schedule, as I said, I used 20 grams per liter of dry hops in this, and that's not really the truth, because I've added some of them as cryo hops. So in reality, it's just above 13 grams per liter of dry hop, but just about 1/3 is, or more than 1/3 is cryo hops. If those were normal hops, it would be 20 grams per liter. I can't fit more. This is what is possible to brew on my setup. Yeah, but for the hops, I use mash hops, and that's one more thing to the recipe. Well, the recipe is one thing. I've done all I can to reduce oxidation in my recipe, leaving out oats, adding mash hops, adding ascorbic acid to the mash. But yeah, and I use mash hops for this as well, because a mash hop it might also contribute with some biotransformation, but I added it mainly just to make complex reactions with copper and iron from the malts, because those metals or those Yeah, those molecules will actually accelerate the oxidation and give it a shorter shelf life. So I tried to add mash hops to, again, give it a longer shelf life. And as I said, this was for 25 liters. I had 15 grams of Simcoe. Actually, I think I just, I had a little extra in my fridge and just poured some, because it doesn't really contribute with that many IBUs or anything like that. So use what you can for mash hop. Just what you have on hand. So at 30 minutes of boil, I added 15 grams of Simcoe, or what equals 12.6 IBUs. And then 30 grams of Citra, 13 IBUs at 10 minutes. 20 grams of Simcoe, almost 10 IBUs at 10 minutes again. Then I did a hop stand with 50 grams of Idaho 7, 50 grams of Simcoe. Simcoe is really good to use in a hop stand because it will free off a lot of thiols that can be biotransformed. So that's a little tip for you as well. Everything I'm saying here is right in this book, so read that. The best book I've ever read about brewing, besides How to Brew by John Palmer. And that was it for the hop stand, 20 minutes at 85 degrees Celsius. Then for the dry hop, and this is really, really important, do not dry hop this beer more than 2 days. And if you do that, you will you'll get too many polyphenols into your beer, and that will make it astringent and will give you hop burn. This has a shitload of hops, and it didn't have any hop burn right out of the tank. So that's really impressive. So you have to find a way to get your hops off the beer. Otherwise, you can't brew this beer. I wouldn't recommend it because you will get hop burn. But the dry hop is 120 grams of Citra, equals 5 grams per liter. 50 grams of Amarillo Cryo, 2 grams per liter. If you use regular pillars, it will be double the amount. And then 50 grams of Cryo Pop, again 2 grams per liter. Then 50 grams of Idaho 7, just regular T90, 2 grams per liter as well. And 50 grams of Simcoe Cryo, 2 grams per liter as well, or T90 pills, it will be double up. And you have to, dry hop after active fermentation, around day 7, that will give you the most haze. You could double dry hop, but I don't have the equipment to do that. So what I did was in a hop bag, with 4 or 5 magnets, I placed the hops in top of my fermenter. So with the magnets, I could lower it slowly and raise it again. That actually went wrong. So my hops were in there half a day too long before I started racking into bottles and kegs. Yeah. I would really recommend a unitank for this, so you can just pull out the hops from the bottom. I just used Verdant IPA, 3 packages, and you have to use 3 packages. If you don't rehydrate, you have to actually use 4 packages just to make sure you won't get any off flavors. So that's really important. I just left it for 6 days to ferment, and then gave it, and then I ramped up at 19 degrees Celsius, and then ramped up the temperature 6 days, just to give it a day to rest. And and that was perfect. The water The calcium is pretty high because I just use my normal water here from where I live, and added quite a lot of calcium chloride actually, but also canning salt, just sodium chloride, and yeah, and some gypsum as well. The most important thing is here to double up on the chlorides compared to sulfate, and that's just to actually soften out the hops and to bring out some of the malt character, even though the malt character is not really here to find. It's just a soft profile. It's not soft, but it is. Yeah, it's a juicy profile. I added quite a lot of lactic acid to get the pH down to 5 points, below 5.6. Don't brew this beer if you haven't got totally control over your brewing process. If you get any oxygen near the beer after adding the yeast, it will be ruined. It will turn purple, it will ruin all the hop flavors, it will be overly sweet, and it will just ruin it so fast. There are so many hops in here that just standing here on the table for 10 minutes, it starts to change the flavors. And leaving it out in the air for like an hour, it would not be the same beer anymore. So going in for the flavors. So when you pour this beer, when I poured the beer right now, I noticed all the aromas come up and hitting my nose, and I got pineapple and I got peach. So the aroma in this beer, yeah, pineapple and peach and a little citrus. As you can see, it's a beautiful yellow hazy color, just like a double IPA should have. It's just it has this, yeah. So it's peachy, pineapple, a little citrus, and then it has this herbal undertone as well. I quite like it. It's not diesel or anything like that. It's just an herbal spicy note in there. All those things, they move on. They come over in the flavor as well. It's thick and juicy without any oats. Yeah, I just love that. So if you are into, it's not just a tropical, typical DIPA. This is, well, it has peach, it has pineapple, it has passion fruit, it has citrus, but it also has this, it doesn't have any diesel. It has this grassy dankness as well with an herbal, almost minty, but not really. So it's really full flavored all over the, well, everything a hop can do is in here, and that's also why I called it what hops can do. As you can see here on this hop comparison wizard, I just typed in Simcoe, Idaho, and Citra. You can see, well, the citrus, of course, yeah, tropical fruit, yeah, stone fruit is definitely the peachy stuff from the Idaho 7. The berries from the Simcoe, I get that as well somewhere in there. Some gooseberry, something like that. Maybe not ripe. None of the fruits are ripe and sweet because it has a good amount of bitterness. Not overly ripe, just fresh, bright, zesty gooseberries, yeah. And then it also has this herbal note from the Idaho and the Simcoe, and spice as well from the Citra and Simcoe. If I just push in Amarillo as well, you can see it's also within the others. It's just a full flavored double IPA that takes you all around what hops can do. And that's why the name is what it is. And yeah, I think it's a lovely beer. As I said, I wouldn't make any changes to it. If you want it even more creamy, add 5% flaked oats. You can change up the hops. If you don't want that herbal spicy feel, just go with Galaxy and Mosaic and Citra. And then you have a totally another beer. But this one is interesting too. The Verdant IPA yeast from Lellemand adds kind of an apricot undertone, something from the yeast profile. It's hard to really describe because everything blends so well together and just gives you this kind of crazy double IPA flavor that tries to contain all the flavors you can get from a double IPA. Oh, I forgot to tell you, I'm doing an experiment where this beer is highly sensitive to oxidation because it's so packed with hops. So I actually am doing an experiment where I compare just from the keg, compared to bottle condition, compared to counter pressure filler, and both of those again with oxygen scrubbing caps. And again, one where I didn't cap on foam and let a little bit of oxygen in, compare that to the two others. So yeah, look forward to that as well. But it's a strong beer, and you won't really notice that. So don't drink everything at once. But yeah, I think that was it. If you have any questions, write to me. Other than that, just have a happy brewing out there.